Have you ever heard that expression, there are two sides of the story and then there is the truth? I love this expression because it really sums up human behavior. The idea is based on essentially there is no right or wrong, but you can have a bunch of people be witnesses to the same event, say a car accident, and they're all going to have their own perception as to what happened. Part of that is going to be based on their location and what they were able to see during that accident. And other people are going to be in a position where they saw it differently, literally. So, from one angle, it looks like car A was at fault, and the other angle, it looks like clearly it was car B that was at fault, right? Neither one of those people is right. Neither one of them is really wrong. There's the truth. And why I bring this up is because we can use this exact same analogy here in our regular lives. When we spend a lot of time going back and, reliving different events that happened in our lives, especially if they were difficult events like we often end up doing, we don't really go back and really relive all of the good stuff, do we? So we're sitting there focusing on things that happened that we wish were different. We wish were this, we wish were that, or we focus on how challenging it was, how difficult it was to lose that friendship or to have that person be so rude to us or whatever it was that really affected us. And I'm just going to suggest that we do the same sort of idea here as with our car analogy and just say, our perspective of what happened was from where we were standing in that moment in time and what we witnessed through our eyes. And I'm just going to remind you, perhaps, or give you a gentle nudge to the fact that the other people or person involved, they were looking at it from their perspective, right? Through their own eyes. And the thing is, we oftentimes think when somebody hurts us, when they are angry, when they yell, when they're rude, when they are, cheating on us, when they are doing all kinds of things that end up hurting us, that is about us. That is, that person really dislikes me. They went out of their way to hurt me, right? If they loved me, they would have treated me better. If they cared for me at all, if I was ever their friend, we start running that type of language and we start second guessing our entire relationship with that person. So we may have had a wonderful relationship with them, say a 10-year friendship. And then over the course of a couple of years, that friendship maybe started to dwindle. And perhaps maybe one of us got more clingy than the other and wanted to save that friendship, and the other person was ready to let it go. And so it ended up coming across like that other person didn't care as much. They weren't putting in the same amount of effort. And so we took it personally because we were. And I just want to show you that we can shift our perspective here. We can shift our perspective on this by realizing that just because that person did that, whatever that is, doesn't mean that they were actually going out of their way to try to hurt you. Same thing with car A was not trying to be at fault for an accident, nor was car B trying to be at fault. Nonetheless, somebody was at fault for an accident, and an accident did occur, but neither of them was planning for that. The person that has done you wrong in the past, the person that caused you some hurt in the past, their reason for doing whatever they did wasn't about you, it was about them. In fact, 99.999% of the time, our own actions, behaviors, thoughts, right, that are driving our own behavior, if we're really honest, have nothing to do with the other people that are around us. It has to do with us. It has to do with how we are perceiving our world around us, the people in it, and whether or not we have any control and things of this nature. And that is all dependent on our past experiences. So, if we've had a lot of past experience with hurt and trauma where we feel like we have to protect ourselves then we're going to be looking through the eyes of somebody who needs protecting when the world is going on around us. The person right next to you, or perhaps the person that is involved in this issue that you are thinking about, they perhaps grew up with a different type of background. And so they weren't traumatized. They weren't having to protect themselves a lot, but perhaps they had real trouble with people understanding their needs. And so they look at the world through the lens of somebody who gets misunderstood all the time. Right. And we're all doing this, which is what explains why you can have a room full of people that are all watching the same person speak. They're all hearing the same words at the same moment in time. And yet, every one of those people will walk away with a slightly different take on that speech because they're all interpreting, including yourself, all that information that came in through filters, right? Through the eyes, the lenses of somebody who believes X, Y, and Z. And we don't all believe the same stuff. So when we're thinking about a conflict, for example, somebody that's done us harm, so say somebody who has cheated on us, regardless of what they might say to make it seem like it was your fault, probably you didn't factor into it at all. They weren't doing this to hurt you. They weren't doing this to get back at you. In fact, you probably didn't come up in their mind much at all, unfortunately. But still, the point is that it wasn't, their behavior was not about you. It was about them. And then perhaps the way that they have learned to shift blame in their lives to get away with things. When you call them on their cheating behavior, their way of getting away with it is how they've always gotten away with things like that, which is to shift the blame. So they shift it onto you. Well, if you would have done this, if you would have been this, if we would have had this great relationship, or whatever it is that they've tried to say to gaslight you, again, not about you. It's all about them. It's the internal struggle that they are dealing with. It's the way that they perceive the world and what is going on in it through their own lenses. It's not about you, it's about them. And so I encourage you to, next time that you find yourself reliving a particular experience, even if it wasn't a particularly traumatic one, just something that you just go back to and you think about from time to time and you think, yeah, I wish that went differently. I want to encourage you to just take a moment and just try to think about what the experience, that same experience, looked like to the other people that were involved, because they too have different filters, right? Even though you were all involved in the same experience, situation, conversation, whatever, they would have seen it differently than you saw it. And then I want you to think about, what if somebody was a fly on the wall? What if somebody was the innocent bystander that's not attached to any of you and they saw that situation or conversation unfold? How would they perceive that situation? And if you took another bystander that heard it at a different angle or saw it at a different angle, do you think that those two bystanders would get the same end result as to what happened in this particular situation? And the idea is not that you come up with a specific answer, but more for you to realize that your perception on things can shift, and that hurt that you are carrying with you, you can actually shift that so that you release that hurt or that anger, that sadness, whatever it is that you are carrying because of that situation, without having to go and relive it, without having to go and have a conversation with that person and hash it out, but simply by realizing that your perception of what happened may be slightly different from how it actually happened. I hope that helps. Bless.